There we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Geopolitics and Money. How are you, Elizabeth?
I am very, very sad and very disappointed because a lot of really absolutely insane stuff is going on right now between Israel, the US, and Iran,
Iran. Yo.
and particularly something that is going to affect global trade, specifically oil, and that is.
The shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz, which is, by the way, the Iranian parliament has approved now that officially they're going to close down. Of course, they need to have the final say of the Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, which most likely he's going to agree to that. So, but what we're going to be addressing in this particular session here, guys, we're going to be talking about the impact, economically speaking, on the global energy markets. And given how important the Strait of Hormuz, we decided, you know what, we're going to be addressing this topic for you today. So
Absolutely. About 30% of the world's oil and about 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas goes through the Strait of Hormuz. So if it were to be shut down, and we're going to dive a little bit more into exactly how it would be shut down, because a direct military conflict with the United States, I think, probably would not work. So we'll dive a little further into that. We have a whole series of videos coming up this week. We have pretty much videos every day from today until Thursday. There's a lot going on, and we have a wonderful sponsor, Giant Mining, that is sponsoring all of these videos. So stay tuned. I'm going to play the ad spot from them. Thank you to them, because without our show sponsors, this show would not be possible. And stay tuned. We're going to talk about how the Strait of Hormuz might actually be shut down.
A big thank you to today's show sponsor, Giant Mining Corp. Without our sponsors, this show wouldn't be possible. Copper shortages just went political. Washington's eyeing import tariffs, and the scramble for homegrown supply is on. Prices are brushing $4.85 a pound, while global stockpiles sit at a 15-year lows. Enter Giant Mining Corp, advancing the 9,800-acre Majuba Hill project in mining Red, Nevada. Recent drilling cut a 170-foot zone averaging 0.4% copper, crowned by a 10-foot streak at 4.4% grades that the majors pay billions for. Independent engineers at RASPC are already modeling the first resource estimates. So Majuba moves while rivals wrestle with the new red tape. Speed wins the super cycle, and they are built for speed. Dig deeper at giantminingcorp.com or on the OTC at BFGFF in the US and BFG in Canada. Remember, there are always risks in investments, and there are no guarantees of any kind. Always do your own research.
Okay.
All right.
So how might this actually happen? How might Iran actually shut down the Strait of Hormuz?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we have to understand that as we speak right now, you get countries in the region like Saudi Arabia already rushing to load some sort of a tankers with exports as precaution, despite the sort of the increase in insurance, because they know what's going to happen. So how the Iran might shut down the Strait of Hormuz? Well, of course, to my knowledge, they have already placed certain ordnance underwater just in case. Iran has been planning on this eventuality for a long time. And now that US has entered this conflict between Iran and Israel, it's just going to be now, it's going to widen. And this is why you have now sort of analysts who deals with energy believe that oil producing in these countries, we're talking about United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, and of course Saudi Arabia in addition to Iran, of course, to a degree, are preparing for the possibility now that the fighting between Israel and Iran and the US now could extend some sort of, not just to the nuclear facilities, but it could also start targeting the oil export facilities. And this is where the danger is. That's where the concern. It's because Iran has already now targeted one of the oil refineries or some sort of a location for the energy inside Israel. So, and of course, that's where the Strait of Hormuz comes in. As you stated earlier, it's one of the world's most important energy waterways.
It is. And actually, let's take a look at, I shared this a second ago, but let's take a look at where the Strait of Hormuz actually is located and why it's so important. So if we look at the region, we look at how many oil producing nations we have in such a small area. We have Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia that are all extremely oil rich countries. And these are the country, I mean, Saudi Arabia is known for its oil wealth. And so, you know, and it's interesting. There's a conversation that I'd like to have a little bit later in the week. And that is, what are the real reasons? What are the actual reasons that there's the conflict right now, that the United States more or less has entered this conflict? And why Israel has done this to begin with. You know, I have some very, Tulsi Gabbard came out and said, oh, they're misquoting me and the whole shebang, right? So we have some really interesting things that are happening in this narrative as the narrative is sort of starting to crumble. But if you look at where the Strait of Hormuz is, Iran is not, it's really one of the only cards, at least in my opinion, and David, please let me know what you think. This is one of the only cards that Iran actually has to play, because it is a very substantial card. If you shut down 30% of the oil and gas that's coming out of this region, it's 30% for the world. If you shut that down, oil markets can't bear that. And so they really do actually have a power play. I think the big question is, can they actually shut it down? Would it be mines? Would it be a direct conflict? What would have to happen for Iran to actually shut it down? Because if they were to try, the US military isn't going to sit back and be like, oh, okay, I guess you can shut it down. So what do you think it would actually take for them to shut this down?
But at the same time, we can also see the scenario that took place similar to that with the Houthis in Yemen.
Absolutely.
Remember? Yeah. So that's why I am not surprised that Iran will embark on this particular sort of trajectory, knowing that it can exert influence on what's taking place. I mean, the United States has already mentioned that it will send its military assets to prevent Iran from, but we don't know what it means. That means the escalation is a foregone conclusion. The escalation brings with it now the involvement of other countries. I'll give you just a quick example. Pakistan just announced now that it's going to be providing Iran with some type of medium-range missiles. Makes you just wonder. You have the foreign minister of Iran in Moscow as we speak. I think he is already back. I'm not certain yet, but I was aware of his trip yesterday. Abbas Arakchi went to Moscow. Why will he go to Moscow for? He will go to Moscow to seek military assistance. This is not about diplomacy and so forth, not anymore. Because what we are looking now, that the US now gets involved, we have to really be ready for the consequences of how this now is going to take place. So Iran will do whatever it needs to do to ensure that the Strait of Hormuz is shut down, one way or another. So this is why, as I mentioned earlier, you have now countries like Saudi Arabia, an OPEC member, a massive oil producer, already rushing to load the tankers with the exports because they know what lies ahead as far as the disruption to all this. So, and this is why, and I had to read an article in which, by the New York Times, in which he quoted Humayun Falakashi, He's the head of crude oil analysis at Kepler Research. And I'm very familiar a little bit with the Kepler Research. Usually they are spot on regarding their analysis when it comes down to energy. And what they're saying is that Gulf states wants now to ensure they minimize the risk, which means what? That they have to export as much oil as possible and as quickly as possible before prices go up. We noticed here in Texas just yesterday, oil prices went up by about 3%. So that tells you where the story is right there.
Absolutely. So I want to speak to exactly what you're talking about. So why is it that there really hasn't been much of a decline in the traffic actually of the ships coming through there right now? And I think that the answer to that, so let me show you guys a couple of interesting images. So this first one is a satellite image of the stockpiles actually at Iran's largest oil terminal. So let me share that with you guys. Let me see if I can make this photo a little bit bigger. Okay, here it is. So this is the stockpiles from June 11th to June 18th. And so Bloomberg is actually reporting that basically what happened is that they took all of the oil out of these, as you can see here on the left, they took all of the oil out and they're actually shipping it straight through. So that's exactly what you're talking about, is right now there's actually a rush to get the oil out of this part of the region and into the world before it's mined or what threats of attack or either a direct attack. I mean, it seems unlikely that Iran would actually direct attack the United States, but if they mined the Strait of Hormuz, that would still be a horrible destruction. So apparently, because I'm not an expert here. This is just what we're looking at. And so apparently the oil storage sites have floating roofs that rise and fall as they're empty and filled. So that's how you can see basically from the shadows of this satellite image how much oil they're actually holding. Is the roofs are well below the like top of the wall. And so apparently that means the reservoirs are only partially full. So all of it's headed out. So I want to share this as well. And it is inbound transits. So can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is inbound transit. So that is vessels that are coming in. And so this is the Israel-Iran strikes. They started. It's declining, but it hasn't declined like crazy, right? I mean, it's not all the way down. So that really is speaking to the fact that this region is really getting its oil out so that there isn't a large disruption because the markets flat out, I think, couldn't bear it.
Yeah, but there is also another element to all this, which we don't know yet what the Houthis are going to do.
That's
because
a great
the
question.
Houthis have announced that if the United States gets involved, they will come to the support of Iran. And why is this important? When you look at this map here, why is this important? Here is the Persian Gulf, the Strait of Hormuz on the right, but you look at where Yemen is, that's Bab el-Mandeb right there. So you got also some major oil producers on this side that use this kind of water to access the Arabian Sea or the Indian Ocean and go to the rest of the world. So if we know the history of what happened a few months ago and how the Houthis were able to sort of shut down the Red Sea, and what did we do? That's my point. So if Houthis were able to shut down the Red Sea, what makes us think that Iran will not be able to shut down the Strait of Hormuz? And that's my point. So the idea of we need to think in terms about the local Arab countries, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Jordan to a degree, but you don't count Jordan into all this. You have to think in terms those countries host US troops.
Mm-hmm.
And Iran has already made it clear now that those bases are within reach of its missiles.
Yeah.
So one way or another, even Iran made it clear that if any of these countries involved in supporting either allow Israel or the United States flights to go over their airspace, that means they are becoming a target. So to the Iranians, they have now to think they are really at a crossroads. It's a major decisions they're going to have to embark on, because whatever decision they make is going to alter the course of history in the Middle East for decades to come. That I am convinced about. So on the other hand, to them, it's now or never. And this is why you're seeing, for example, Pakistan. I was surprised that Pakistan already stated publicly that they are willing to give Iran medium-range missiles only 2 days after they supported Mr. Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize, which makes me just wonder what the heck was the Pakistanis thinking? Literally, yeah, they did. And they did because they said he's the one who sort of de-escalate regarding their conflict with India. I don't think so.
Okay, so you want to know something interesting, and we'll talk about this probably on tomorrow's show.
Mm-hmm.
I'm solidly not sure that Trump knows what's happening.
That is, you are right. You are absolutely correct.
And I have some things I'm going to point to in the next show about this. I have some body language things that I'm going to point to that I'm not sure he knows what's going on. I think he's getting fed information maybe even before it's happening, but there's some very wonky things that are happening right now that kind of point to maybe Trump doesn't actually know what's going on. Yeah. So I'm just putting that out there because I'm very curious about it, and we'll talk about it in the next show.
Well, I am convinced it's not his decision.
Yeah,
it's not his decision. When you talk about the disparities that exist within the Trump administration, for example, when you have a CIA director that is presenting information or intelligence, what makes us sure or think that that intelligence that is provided is based on a U.S. assessment and not being provided by the Israelis? So let's just be fair. As one who worked in DC, I was involved in the intelligence community. You understand how these things work. You know, the PDB, the Presidential Daily Briefing, the president might not be given the accurate information based on a U.S. And that's the key, based on the U.S. assessment. Why am I saying this? And what convinced me to say this is because when you have a president discrediting his own DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, that tells you the story right there. That tells you the story right there.
Absolutely. And the way that he's starting to stumble through things. I mean, I think this is happening much faster than even he can keep any handle on. But it is, he has to pretend that he's the one doing it. He has to pretend that he knows what's going on. But it's definitely looking.
He doesn't know.
Okay, I wasn't gonna go into this tirade, but it's a little bit of one that, the narrative of this is starting to sound so much like weapons of mass destruction and Saddam Hussein. Oh my gosh, exactly.
Indeed.
Exactly. It's almost like word for word.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous. But the thing is, we're still, I was young. I was very young when that happened. My husband went to go fight in that war, so did you. Yeah. But it's starting to sound the same. And I was old enough to remember what that narrative sounded like. And our generation is old enough. I think the youngest generation don't remember it, but we know what that sounded like, and it's sounding the exact freaking same over and over and over again, except they're not even trying that hard this time. Like last time they were trying really, really hard. Now the narrative is like barely there. It's falling apart. There are holes all over it. It's like they're going as fast as possible so that people can't catch up. People can't tell them no. And you have people like Thomas Massie in Congress who are saying, hey, slow down. This is unconstitutional. You didn't even go to Congress. You didn't even ask this. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And it's happening so fast that nobody can catch their breath. Nobody can say, stop, don't do this. And
well, it tells you right there, because we have disregarded now the Constitution and the law and everything, But it highlights a much bigger problem for us. And the problem is, this is where the flaw with our system is. That's why the system is failing. Our system is failing completely. Now, I think, and again, this is me thinking out loud, I think this conflict that the U.S. now injected itself into is going to precipitate that notion of the decline of the United States. There is no other way of looking at it. I am even going as far as saying it will be the final nail on the U.S. coffin. And let alone the legacy of Trump, so-called the anti-war president, turns out to be much worse than Biden, much worse than whatever, because all other presidents before him, all of them stopped short of launching an attack or dropping bombs on Iran. And that tells you right there how Donald Trump was easy to manipulate and force into carrying out the orders of the hidden hand behind the scenes.
I laid in bed last night at, 1 a.m, and I thought to myself, would Kamala Harris have been any better? And I think the answer is no.
No.
Absolutely not. No matter who the president was, this was. And guys, if you haven't watched the last show, we showed an interview with Vladimir Putin, a very recent one, that basically he was like, the US presidents, they have all these ideals and they have all these things that they want to do. And then these men in dark suits come in and tell them, exactly what to do. And he said that, basically he's been through 3 US presidents now, that it's the same story every time. Donald Trump ran on no more wars. Like, you can see, people are posting this all over the place where it's like, Trump Vance, no more wars. What is this? And then, they're like, well, this isn't a war. Okay, well, then what is it exactly? If we're not at war, then why is this happening? So I think these are really good and important questions. And of course, it happens over the weekend. It happens over the weekend where people are not focused. They're out with their families. It's summer vacation. So the majority of the American people are off living their lives. And that's when this happens. Yeah. It doesn't happen on a Monday, on a work day where everybody's paying attention. It happens on a freaking Saturday when everybody's out with their families. That's
why this morning there was a massive demonstrations in San Diego, anti-Trump rallies. I don't know if you saw that or not, but it was major. As a matter of fact, if you allow me here, I kept one of those. If I'm going to share it with you guys, if you allow me here. So let me share it with you.
Yeah, some of you guys are talking about how Trump was like visibly disconcerted or visibly shaken, not quite put together last night. And I definitely want to talk about that. Like, that's something that we're going to talk about tomorrow. Like I said, guys, we have 5 shows this week. We have today through Thursday, thanks to our sponsor, Giant Mining. So we're going to talk more about this week, sort of as this unfolds. But I think it's so important right now to be keeping an eye on this, because I think that that's what the institution that's whoever is orchestrating this wants, is it for it to happen so fast that no one can pay attention to it. Yeah. Well, the thing to do is to pay attention to it so that it's not happening in the dark, so that it comes into the light and we can actually pay attention to it.
All right, let's take a listen here quickly, if I may. And,
Here, I'll remove this.
Okay.
What did you want to add?
Yeah, I'm just going to add this one right there.
Oh, here, this one?
Yeah.
Here, David, let me put it. Oh, you had it.
Yeah, I got it. I got
Okay.
it here. So
Go ahead.
Let me just put it up.
Yeah, sorry guys, the chat is moving really fast and I can't see everyone's stuff. Oh, wow.
Good morning, San Diego. America's pissed off, people. The This is Waterfront Park at the county
Oh,
building
wow.
in San Diego, California. We are here to protest Donald Trump, his administration.
Wow.
Yeah.
Trump must go.
Yeah, that is not what they're calling for. Trump must go. It's because we are also realizing the danger that he's putting us into this, and not just us, is the rest of the world for that matter. Because a major war, we're talking about the so-called World War III. I don't even like to use that because there will be no. That will be it. That will be it. Given the massive type of weaponry that we have evolved. But here is where my big concern is that what we are witnessing right now, it was the same scenario at the early years of the 1930s. This is what concerns me the most. And again, if I am to go just back during the 80s, when at the time was Ronald Reagan, it was exactly what Henry Kissinger told him to do.
Yeah.
And we are seeing the same scenario. And we're asking ourselves, haven't we learned anything from history? Why are we keep repeating the same? And when I say we, mainly our country, the US.
Well, so here's what I want to say is every single person that I have come across or talked to has said, I don't want this war. We don't want this. We have our own issues here in the United States. So and I know that there are a lot, I mean, probably in this chat, probably watching it. I mean, probably there are bots that are going and spreading whatever information whoever sent them out went to. So don't trust everything you read on the internet. Don't trust every comment you read. But it's everyone that I've come across doesn't want this. Like real American people, right? My husband and I were with our friends this weekend. Very, very good, kind, wonderful people. And none of them want this. And so who does want this? And that's why I'm saying it's happening on a weekend and it's happening really fast so that people can't fundamentally do anything about it. Yeah. And so it's taking the power out of the people's hands, which that is not what government is for. Government is to take care of its people, do the things and represent its people. And I don't believe that that's happening right now. I don't believe the American people are being represented. And I think that's important for those of you who are somewhere else in the world. I think it's really important that you understand that the United States is not its people. And this is, I think, in my personal opinion, being done without really the consent of the American people. It bypassed Congress. It is not, Congress was not involved in this. Yeah. And so our elected representatives were not involved in this. If you watched Donald Trump last night, it kind of doesn't even look like he was involved in this. Yeah. And so I really need the world to know that the United States people are not, for the vast majority, I think, are really not interested in this.
Yeah. Let alone the violation of the international law and the Geneva Convention for a nuclear power to attack a non-nuclear country. There is a convention in Geneva regarding this aspect. We violated all of them. And so, as you said earlier, it will be very interesting to do an analysis about the body language of Donald Trump when he was doing this.
Yeah, I'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow's show, guys. Be there.
Yeah,
I'll dive into that because that's an expertise that I have. So
yeah, since we're gonna be doing this show for 5 days, guys, in a row, and also gives us an opportunity to, like I always say, provide you a different perspective from different angles, so you'll have a better understanding and be well informed and be aware of what you are watching and reading. So be aware of that. So
and just to be clear, the Strait of Hormuz is not closed. What happened was the parliament said, yes, this is something we're interested in doing. And it's interesting. I watched a series of videos from just everyday people that they're interviewing in Iran. And almost every one of them said, hey, close it. The real question is, if they were to close it, because it still has to go through another level of approval, if they were to close it, the question would be how. Would they put mines in the ocean? Would they threaten attack? Would they actually attack? Like, what are the means through which the Strait of Hormuz would be closed? And my opinion would be mines. And I think that's a horrible thing for everything and everyone involved. But that is kind of the least, the most, I don't want to say passive aggressive, David, but it's not a direct attack. It's not, it's not even the threat of attack. It's a sort of muted threat of attack. And so just to clarify that.
Yeah. Well, one thing is sure is that what the US did, it now united the entire Iranian society. That is one of, any time a society unites, there is no other force that can destroy it, and Iran, this is their moment now. You see how the whole society, I saw a banner earlier this morning, and there are differences inside Iran society. There are cracks also. There are supporters of the regime. There are sort of opposition and so forth. But one thing they all agree on right now, according to that banner and what was written on it, it says, and I quote here, "We are all soldiers of Iran," and that's in itself. And if we know anything about the history of Iran, I wrote a book about Iran, and this particular aspect of history, I had to tackle that. It's because if we couldn't understand what the Persian Empire had to go through, we won't understand modern day Iran. And this is something the West, they don't. So when warmongers are saying, just go ahead and drop the bombs on Iran, they're not going to do anything, we are mistaken. So that's usually...
Go ahead, David.
That's what I was going to say. That's usually the fatal mistakes some of us in the West are making, because we saw already this scenario in Afghanistan, and look how it turned out. We saw it in Iraq. Look how it turned out. We saw it in Vietnam back then with the assumption that we're going to defeat. No, it never works.
Well, and 20 years later for Afghanistan. But I think, and something we're going to touch on perhaps a little bit later also, we have to be really careful about what we say here on YouTube. We might do a Rumble show later. But guys, we obviously have to be very careful what we say here on YouTube about this topic. But one of the most interesting things I think that's happened is, Russia's deputy chairman of the Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, basically said that now a bunch of other countries are willing to actually supply Iran with their own nuclear weapons.
Because they know it's now or never. This is why I'm saying this will be for the US the final nail on a coffin.
I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. If Tulsi Gabbard was actually correct, and they were not pursuing nuclear weapons. If that's the case, now you're basically having Russia come out and say, well, they didn't have it before, but they sure are going to have it now. I mean, that's literally the opposite thing that we wanted, right? We wanted them to not have it.
Well, on the other hand, there are those who are saying, well, why shouldn't they? What gives us the right to dictate to other countries who has the weapons and who doesn't? And this is where the controversy comes up as far as what this is really about. It's not about just the nuclear program. It is about ensuring the dominance of Israel in the Middle East, and that partnership between the US and Israel will control the rest of the... I mean, look at the pathetic Arab countries. What are they doing? None of them ever come forward and say, you know what the US is doing is wrong. Tell me if it was any country that came forward. They can't, because they are so pathetic. Anyway, that's a conversation for another day, and we might do that one because we need to address how the Arab world, especially the Muslim world now, is seeing the attack on Iran, being a Muslim country. Besides being a Persians, it's a Muslim country, and how they are interpreting that. Because if I am to guess, not a guess, I did the research on this, and it became clear to me that they know that they could be next if they don't toe the line. That's the bottom line to it.
Yeah, and we typically go for economics, which is sort of why the Strait of Hormuz is very important. But I do want to ask the broader question, and that is, why is this happening at all? I think it is the question worth asking, because it's never the thing that they say it is, right? It's never the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, you know? Yeah. So it's certainly worth asking the question, even if we may not be able to answer it here on this show. So maybe let us know in the comments, what do you guys actually think is the real reason that this conflict is happening? Because it's probably the most important question we could be asking right now.
Indeed. And we will be addressing more of this as the week goes on, and we'll prepare other angles regarding this topic that we feel it will help you have a better or acquire a better understanding of the conflict as a whole. So anyway, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this. We're going to be doing about 30-35 minutes for the next 5 days. And of course, we are open to your suggestions. If you have any suggestion, please just put it on the comment. And if this is your first time here, we'll appreciate you if you can subscribe to the channel. And please make sure to share this video with others. So this is how we learn, truth matters, like we always say. So
absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. You take care. Bye-bye.